Hey everybody, Kate Paine here from Standing Out Online. Thank you for joining me with Coffee with Kate with my guest, Jim Fuhs. Hey Jim.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too. So Jim is my special guest today from his own business based in Atlanta, but like we all do these days, globally, Fusion Marketing. And you'll see his last name is spelled Fuhs. And I met Jim, I think 2 or 3 years ago through a mutual friend of ours, Jessica Phillips, who holds the largest social media conference in the Midwest in, God, I can never remember, Jim,
Lima, Ohio. That's right. I always want to say Lima.
I know, Lima. I know.
My mom
Lima,
is from
Peru, and Lima,
Peru.
Ohio. Anyway, so we met, and Jim's a speaker, and his specialty is in video and YouTube and podcasting. So, this is, you're all hearing this on my podcast, and you're seeing this right now live on StreamYard. And we're going to be talking about a lot of really cool things today. So remember, the name of my show with my tagline is Coffee with Kate, Brewing Business Brilliance for Entrepreneurs. And you're going to get a lot of business brilliance today. Yes. Shout out to Jessica Phillips. So Jim, why don't we have you give just a little bit of a background, because one of the things I think is so interesting about you is that you're actually a retired Marine.
Yes. I was a retired Marine. It's been 15 years that I've been retired, and I was not originally in marketing. So, we'll talk more about that, but went all over the world, literally. And I'm just, enjoying being in the marketing space. I think I like the tech part of it because it's always changing. And so my tagline is I do marketing the Marine Corps way, because I use those processes and mindset that I had in the military to help my clients get results.
Yeah, cool. I love that. And, I've been in the marketing world for like 35 years. So don't want to date myself too much. And it's funny because, I originally wanted to be a journalist. And then when I was a journalist, then I started getting offers for PR jobs. And then I shifted because, first of all, the money was better, and I actually really enjoyed it. But all of these things that we do over time all kind of seem to intertwine or interweave together where we finally end up. So we're going to talk a lot about a lot of different things today and tools to use. By the way, I think your friend Chris Stone is on here.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to Chris Stone, my good friend and co-host of our show Dealcasters on Amazon and all the tubes, as we like to say. And
all the tubes.
We had a show this week with Dustin Stout talking about Magi, his amazing AI tool,
wow.
So shout out to Magi and all the things you can do with it. Because, people say, oh, I want to use ChatGPT, but, he's got like that and 20 something other tools just on the large language model side. And then he's got the image stuff too. And you pay about the same as you pay for ChatGPT to use it. So that's why I'm a big fan.
Cool. All right. So let me ask you, my first question is,
Sure.
So how does a retired Marine, and thank you for your service, by the way, sincerely.
Thank you. You're worth it.
In video and YouTube and podcasting?
Well, I've always liked technology. Like even when I was I'm probably dating myself, but my first computer was the Commodore 64. And
remember them.
Yeah. And then I was originally going to be a computer science major in college, but then I saw that those guys spent all their time in their rooms doing programming. That didn't seem like fun. So I switched to business, and so graduated, went in the Marines, but I started tinkering with desktops, and I was like the guy in the base housing that people would come to and say, hey, can you help me upgrade my modem, from 14.4 to 28.8, which, dating ourselves some more on that.
So
I always have liked
that was, Jim?
Okinawa, 1994.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. But so I kind of, lost sight of that, kids and things like that happened. So that became more of my focus. But then when I retired, I was doing government contract consulting, and I was going to these events, and I would see these people talking about, oh, we help people with their social media marketing. I'm like, well, what is this? And so I started to, like I like to do with a lot of things, I started to research it and find out like, oh, what is this? And I'm like, these people are getting paid to post people's stuff on Facebook. It's like, that doesn't seem too hard. I think I could do that. So I was in a BNI group, and I switched from being government contract consulting to marketing. And I had a couple of the members of the group that were willing to let me use them as my guinea pig, and started doing social media management. So I still really wasn't doing the video piece. But then I went to social media marketing world in 2018. And the talk at the time was Facebook Live. You got to go live on Facebook. That's what Facebook
Was that the
wants.
first year that Mike Stelzner did Social Media Marketing World?
No,
2018,
he had done it.
Okay.
He had done it before that.
Okay.
But that was the first time I made it. And so then you start to learn, and for, the Facebook clue for everyone that's watching live or on replay is when Facebook tells you they want you to do something, you do it, and you'll get results. Don't fight. It's kind of like your mom telling you what to do and you don't do it. And then when you do it, you say, oh, everything actually worked. I should have listened.
Exactly. I should have listened to Mom the first time.
So it's one of these things. And Chris and I are big believers in this when it comes to technology, is like, you kind of eat your own dog food. So in order for me to have people go live on Facebook, I had to start doing that. So I started a show with my friend Tim Sohn that you were on back when we had that show.
Hi, Tim.
Live, right? Started going live and getting comfortable with it. And then it was a matter of helping the clients go live and helping them overcome that fear of being on camera. Because up until that point, I'm just like the rest of you folks probably watching. I was not born in front of a camera,
right?
Doing all these things, getting trained how to do it. I mean, I've spoke, and it's interesting. I think sometimes, Kate, we find that people are more afraid of being on camera than they probably are doing public speaking. Which,
I would agree. Absolutely.
Fascinating about that. I haven't really figured out why. It's like, but you don't have any pressure, and with live like we are right now, I think we've all gotten to accept that things will happen.
Exactly. And I think that we can sort of thank, quote in air quotes, I think we can sort of thank the pandemic for that, because we all had to go. I mean, some people had never even heard of Zoom till we had COVID. And of course, I'd been using Zoom 4 years before that happened. But I mean, all those things that started happening where like kids were coming in the background or cats were walking across the keyboard or whatever, I think it's helped everybody to be a little bit more forgiving that it doesn't actually have to be perfect.
Right. I would definitely agree. Yeah. And so that's really how I ended up doing it. And because I like tech and it's always changing, I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that really, I think the key is that we have to continuously be learning.
Yep.
No different than when I was in the military. And so it's kind of like, okay, something new's out. Let's try it. Let's see if it works. Let's see. Chris and I like to do things like, let's see if we can break it.
Yeah.
How do we work around the limitations of whatever the program is we might be doing? So that's one of the things that I find exciting about it. So it keeps me energized, right? It's not the same thing every day.
Right.
Even with shows like, and I, now I'm working with you as an example, right? It's going to be a different guest. It's going to be a different topic. So it's not the same thing. And I think that keeps things interesting.
Right. And for those of you who are listening, and for those of you who are listening on the replay, thank you. So Jim is actually a new member of my team. So I'm so excited about that. But Jim does a lot of different things. He's got a specialty in video. He's got a specialty with like YouTube channels and the way you build them and organize them. And certainly he's got the technical knowledge for the YouTube piece and the video piece, but also he's really well known in the podcast world. And so Jim is actually the person that is actually, he is actually producing my show that we're on right now in the background while he's my guest. So he's juggling and he's doing a good job. And then afterwards, he organizes all of my things, and then he strips the audio out of this to use on Captivate, the Captivate platform, which is where my podcast lives. So talk a little bit about the, not just sort of snapshots of each of the three kinds of verticals, if you will, that you manage, that you do.
Yeah.
Other people could be working with you too.
Sure. So I think part of it is, right, we get into the production itself. And so that's something that I do, both with my friend Chris, like when we go live, lately Chris has been the main producer because of the program that we're using. When we use StreamYard, we both can produce it. Um, and
And
there's
we're on
there's
StreamYard
other
right now.
platforms. Yeah. And there's other platforms that are coming out. So we try to be platform agnostic, right? It's more
Right.
about what do you need it to do for you. So
Right.
that's kind of the first step is, getting comfortable, making sure the guest knows things like, make sure you have, headphones or in-ear monitors or something because you don't want to have that echo feedback that you sometimes hear on Zoom calls. That's probably why.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, audio is important. Having a good speaker, and then I think that so it's kind of the next step is what, and I was guilty of this before, and that's one of the things I love about working with my friend Chris, and I've learned so much working with him, is you produce this great content, and then what tends to happen is we're off to the next piece.
Exactly.
And so what we've done is we start to take this content and we repurpose it. And
Yep.
so video or video podcast, if you want to call it that,
Hmm.
are becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And so, as an example, YouTube has become, according to Chris Kremitzos and some of the stats out there, has become one of the biggest places where people are listening. You want to call it that, to podcast. But
Right.
that doesn't mean take your video and create a 1 hour audiogram because I don't think anyone is going to do that.
Right.
And I love what Chris says, right? You're creating a content legacy. Because the one thing too is, and Chris is really the one that made me think about this is years from now, Kate, when you have grandchildren or even your grandchildren's children, they'll be able to come to YouTube and watch you and see what you were like at different periods in your life.
Right.
We know we used to have to get the the film if you still have them, and I know we transferred some of ours to digital from my family. So we create this short form content with those nuggets that come out of these longer episodes to get people to go back and watch the whole thing.
Exactly. Right.
And so that's another piece of it. So then the other thing is to take this video as an example and strip the audio and make it into an audio podcast so it can go out on all the audio players. And so what's the benefit of having a show is one, it's really a great marketing tool. It's building that awareness of you, of your guest. Right now we've got people from my community learning about you and vice versa.
Mhm.
That's part of the power of the live streaming and the fact that we're able to also interact with the guest during the live stream. And even if they're watching on replay, we can still go back and respond to their comments after the
Yes,
fact.
that's what I love. And I'm just going to interject here. So, anybody who is watching this on the replay, if you have any questions or comments or things you want to share, you can still do that in the post, in the comments, and tag Jim or tag me or whatever, and still keep the conversation going even long after the live stream has ended.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I love, and one of the things I really enjoy about working with you is, we're in that, we won't say how old we are, but we're in this generation that is really there's an opportunity here. We have all these years of wisdom and experience that we bring to the table. And so by sharing our story through video, we can help a lot of people out. And it's not just
Mhm.
about the 20 somethings. I've been reading Jen Hardy's new book about YouTube and her story of how she has grown her channel. And I think, she's another example of someone that later in life has gotten started with it. So one, it's not too late.
What's the book?
It's I think it's like YouTube hacks or secrets. I'll have to find it and
Okay.
I'll share it with you. But she just
Okay.
released it. Um, but so that's another piece of it. And then of course, in this case, we're multi-streaming, right? We're live on YouTube, we're live on Kate's Facebook, and as well as live on LinkedIn. And
Right.
so
And we're live on your channels too.
yes, yes. And so that allows us to get caught, catch more people.
Mhm.
Um, And, because you don't necessarily know where everyone's going to be. I mean, one thing I will say is you don't have to be everywhere,
Right.
but make sure that you're in those places that you plan to focus on. Recently, I don't know if you have yet, Kate, I've signed up for Blue Sky, which
Mhm.
is kind of the Twitter
Yes.
competitor.
I'm actually
Um,
planning on it, just haven't gotten there yet.
yeah, and who knows, at some point they may start to allow video to go on
Right,
there.
exactly.
So
Yep.
that would be another possibility. So those are some of the things I think to consider. But then if you don't feel like you can be consistent with having a show
Mhm,
like you are,
mhm.
um, be a guest, right?
Right.
I think that
Great piece of advice.
for 2025, I would say, if anything, go out to Podmatch, which is a great site. You can build a guest profile, and it'll match you with podcast host. And of course, a lot of these podcast hosts are doing video; it's not just audio. And get your story out there. I
Mhm.
mean, when you invited me to be on your show, like for me, that's a no brainer. It's like I'm not going to say no to being on a show as a guest unless it just doesn't align with
Right.
me. And I
Right,
think
you have to be
people should do that.
discerning on where you're gonna go. Don't just and also, even though there's a lot of really good podcasts out there that may not be the end all be all high end like the ones that everybody knows that are really well known, but there's a lot of quality podcasts out there, even though they don't have as big an audience as some of the, well-known podcasters, but they're quality and they're consistent. Like when you do your research, even using a tool like Podmatch, see how many episodes they've done, see the types of guests they've had, do your due diligence. I think what a lot of people do, and I work with my PR clients on this, is a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to be a guest on all these podcasts, and I'm just going to throw my pitch out there and hope that they say yes. But you really need to do your due diligence with those podcasters, because you're going to be more inclined to get on really good podcasts if you show that you have listened to some episodes, that you've made a comment about some of the things they've done. Don't just cram for an exam,
Right.
but pay attention, because then when you do that due diligence for those podcasts, those can get you onto those bigger podcasts, those ones that you really that have sort of more name recognition, if you will. But don't poo-poo a smaller podcast just because it doesn't have name recognition, because that's where you can build a visibility / PR foundation there.
Right. And I think the other thing too is you're putting in, as my friend Chris likes to say, you're putting in the reps, right?
Yeah.
You're getting to practice, you're getting better at spending your message out there and getting better at how you hone that skill. Of course, and a lot of times too, I tell people one of the things they should consider if they're not comfortable with speaking is join Toastmasters, right?
Yeah.
Toastmasters is a great place to practice and learn things like vocal variety and pace and things of that nature that you don't always think about, because
Right.
when you're live like we are right now, we don't get a do-over button. We can't like go back and say, oh, I want to say that again. And so I think sometimes with YouTubers, I'll say they're doing a lot of takes, they're doing a lot of editing, and they're trying to make it look perfect.
Right.
And I don't necessarily like that
I
myself.
agree.
A lot of times I'll go with the first take unless it's something that I feel is really important. Sometimes we'll mess up words and we'll say, oh, I got to do that over. But I think sometimes too, it's relatable to people, right?
Mhm.
That
Right.
that you're able to be real and to be you. So I think those are some of the important things and I love what Martin's saying, get better one show at a time.
Exactly.
Yes,
Mhm. And
absolutely.
get if a lot of people think sometimes, oh, well, everybody's got a podcast, I guess I have to do a podcast. I'm like, no, 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 no. Just like everybody didn't do a blog back in the days when blogs first came out. I mean, if you don't like what you want, what you think you want to do, and you start to should on yourself, then that's probably not something you should do. But if you think podcasting's great and you want to get out there, especially if you're a speaker or you're even trying to become a better speaker, it's a great way to get your voice out there, by being a podcast guest. And you can learn a lot. Every podcast host manages their show differently. Some will ask you to send them 10 questions that you want to be asked. Others will say, what would you like to talk about, this and that. So, be focused, especially if you're going to pitch yourself to a podcaster.
Right.
Be focused about something like a hook or an angle that's going to be interesting. What more do you have to say about that, Jim? Because you work with a lot of podcasts
Yeah.
and stuff.
So I think you hit on a great point, and this is one of the things. Like Chris does this a lot. We do this when we're thinking about having a guest on our show. We'll take a look. It's like, well, where have they been on video before?
Right.
Do they have a YouTube channel? If they don't have any sort of video out there showing them in action, right? They're in the witness protection program. We're probably going to be leery about having them on.
Right.
Right. So it becomes your portfolio.
Yes.
And so I think that's important. I mean, so even if you're just recording short videos, uploading them to your YouTube channel, talking about what you do. And I think, that's the other piece is why not share with the world what it is you do? Because a lot of times, people even ask me, and I'm guilty in a sense sometimes, is I don't talk enough about what I do.
Right.
Right. And so by doing it with video, as I like to say, at least at the moment, we get all the senses except for touch, taste, and smell. But that may change with virtual reality. We'll have smell-o-vision before you know it. So I think that's one of those things too, is, it's that whole thing, right? Context. Blogs, we don't always read the right message. It's the same thing with text messaging. But video really brings us as close to reality as we can, and live even more so than recorded. Because with recorded, we can, it's kind of like we can do take two, do take three to get that impact. Where I feel like when we're live, like we are right now, we tend to become more natural, be ourselves. And I think that's what I really think is important in connecting with people and building community. So like even right now, we've got, Martin and Chris and the folks over on YouTube. I think, we're connecting with them.
Farnham is in Vermont.
Yes.
He says yes to smell-o-vision.
That's
Hi,
right. So I think those are, and then I thought it was interesting too. You don't think about it, but
did you see what Chris just said?
Yes, the scratch and sniff video. That's right.
Sorry to interrupt you. That was funny.
We'll have to find that somewhere. If we can invent it, we'll make $1 million or more.
Okay.
But I think the other piece of it is that if you have, I mean, sure, you might only have at some cases, 10 people watch a live stream, but it's really about the replay views.
It's all about the replay.
If you had 200 people watch your show at some point, that's filling a movie theater.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
that's
when
not
you and
a
I
bad
started
thing.
working together with my podcasts just in the last 2 months, you were telling me how many people have been downloading it, and I'm like, really?
Right.
Like
right.
because I'm not always paying attention. I mean, that's partly why I hired you. But it's like, so funny. It's what you're trying to do. But then when you see it happening, it's just amazing how much happens after the fact. I still like doing this live, though. Number one, it's just because it's my jam. Years ago, I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. So in some ways, I'm scratching that itch. But I love this. I love all the people who are making comments and being funny, and they're engaged, and it makes it a more interactive experience. Right. And I love it. And so I'm going to keep doing this live. The fact that we can strip the audio out and still make it be something interesting. One of the things I have to remember, and I have not been doing this well over the last 20 minutes, is I should be reading what's on the screen, because the people who are listening on the podcast won't know what some of them are saying. So let me just take a moment. So first of all, my friend Emma Dumel is on here, and she was talking about the when you were talking about being authentic. Like we don't all have to be perfect. And I think our world is much more like, I'd rather just have you be yourself. Look at all the podcasts that are webcasts, like Joe Rogan and all these other ones. They're all themselves. They're bantering, and it's not all perfect. Their production values are good. You have to have good audio, because people will forgive bad video, but they will not forgive bad audio.
Yes.
And so you want your production values to be good. We were talking about smell-o-vision, so some people made comments about that. But I wanted to go back to the one, Martin Buckland's watching us on YouTube right now. And he was talking about when you were mentioning about why some people are more fearful of being on video than they are public speaking. And he said, yes, psychologists state that appearing live on camera with one lens is more nerve-wracking than public speaking. I can relate to this. I have conquered the battle with that one lens.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah, because like right now I'm having to look at my camera.
yeah,
Even though I'm talking to you, it's like we're used to looking at the person we're talking to. So that becomes something you have to practice. And so, of course, when you're, in essence, we're looking at all these comments, right? If I look off to the side, it's like, well, how come he's not paying attention? So when
yeah,
you're producing
yeah.
and on it at the same time, that's one of those things but I think people start to realize that that's what's going on. It's like, oh, okay, they're checking the comments. So,
Jim,
a teleprompter might help.
I just had an idea. Could we
Oh,
ever do a show that we're doing like we are right now, but show it sort of from behind the scenes so that people would see what's going on our end? Because before I
mhm,
hired you to sort of do this in the back end, I'm doing all the, like,
mhm,
we're working on doing an intro commercial for me, and I'm doing that, and I'm watching the comments, and I'm putting up the lower thirds and all of that, and I'm interviewing my client. And I can do it, but I like you doing it, because then I can really focus on the conversation with my guest. But could we ever do that, like, to show the whole experience of what it looks like?
yeah. I mean, it would basically, like, if I wasn't on the show itself, like I could have a camera showing like from behind me what I'm doing, and it would maybe be another window, or it
Okay.
might be distracting. But yeah, that's definitely
I don't know, maybe kind of
something.
fun to try that,
You know,
because I think, especially for people who are like me, who want to do something like this. Like some people are like, well, I don't want to do a podcast, but I would do StreamYard. I'm like, well, you could actually do both. You could
right,
use the tool to do StreamYard, and then you can do like what you and I have worked out.
right,
Anyway, just made my creative
yeah,
gears start
yeah.
moving a little bit. So, all right, we've got some questions. So Emma has asked Jim, she would love some tips on how to conquer the one lens fear. Great
So,
question.
so I think one of the things, and actually, it's funny she brings this up. I was teaching a class on live streaming last night, online to a community college, and if you were to start with your smartphone, and if you put it on the tripod, I don't care if you've got it vertical or landscape, whichever design you pick. If you're the person that's being interviewed, have the person on the other side of the camera looking at you eye to eye, and they just make sure that you're lined up with the lens so that it
Mhm.
looks like you're looking at the camera, and then just start talking and have that conversation, and they're recording you, right? So you all of a sudden don't realize that you're actually talking to the camera. You think you're talking to the person.
Right.
So when I've done interviews for companies, when I've gone to some events, that's how I get the person that I'm interviewing, that because they don't care about me.
Right.
They're wanting to get the information from the person. And so that's one way. If you want to have like a buddy help you
Mhm.
get comfortable. Another program that I like to use, it's called Reincubate Camo, and so it
What's it called?
allows you Reincubate Camo. I'll put the link in the chat. It
Okay.
lets you hook your phone up to your computer and use it as a webcam. So, but in that essence, because you can see what the camera looks like on your desktop, you can use the back cameras, say, of your phone. Uh,
Oh, wow.
you don't have to touch the phone. So now you can use that as your webcam instead of, using your, what do you want to call it? Your, uh, a webcam, or even a really expensive camera, because you've
Right.
got a smartphone that's got a 4K camera. Well, now you can see what you look like and that you're centered right on the phone. And then you can just go ahead and hit record, talk to the camera lens, and just practice, right? Just get those reps in, see what the recording looked like. And so that's where I think it helps, is just getting used to staring at the camera. I think a lot of times having that person on the other side, it's almost like because even as an example,
I do that all the time, actually.
yeah, if I asked you, like you could ask me, if I were to ask you a question, like I'd be like, what got you started in, the broadcasting field, right? You answer the question. Well, in editing it, we take out me asking the question because you're answering it. It's like, I got started in the broadcasting field because of that. So that's where you can also kind of get yourself through getting that content out. So I think that's one of the ways that I think is very effective to help overcome that fear. And I really think it's about doing it. It's
Yeah.
about getting in front of it and doing it, and not continuing to say, oh, and even by you, the reason I bring up the phone is now you don't have the excuse of, oh, well, I got to go out and buy a camera.
Yeah, right.
I got to go spend all this money on gear. It's as simple to start as with your phone, and you can get a good mic, a lapel mic. Of course, I got a couple different ones. These ones aren't cheap. This is the Shure Move mic. What I like about these is, if I can open the case now, right? They're very small, right?
Yep.
They clip on, and they've got a distance of 200 meters and noise cancellation. This is another one. This is the Samson Q2U, a $60 mic. It works both what we call USB, straight in your computer, or XLR if you got a sound interface. Use that for a long time. And then, of course, probably what most people are used to or see all the time, we'll call it the Rode Wireless Go 2, the beeper. But you can also get it with a fake microphone, and so then you can go around and be the man on the street and talk to people that way.
I just got one that was just to test it because it wasn't super expensive. It's called the Magic Pop mic, and it comes with two, and it's got a range of about 50 feet. But if you're just doing a reel or something like that, and you just want to set it up and you want good audio, it's I just got it to test it. It's like $40. Took forever to get it though. I think I ordered it. It took like 3 weeks, but anyway, it works well. So the other thing I wanted to share, Bob Farnham just said, he's started using a teleprompter to host interviews like this. So I am looking in the eyes of the person I'm interviewing with my camera behind the teleprompter. That's a great tool. And then Martin said that Elgato prompter has been a game changer for him. So thanks for that, Martin. When I was going to college in New York City, so now really I'm dating myself, in the late 80s, I had an internship at CBS News. And I was actually working the first year at CBS Morning Show. And then the second year, my senior year, was at the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. I was working in the Northeast Bureau. And so I used to get sent out with the crews to get the B-roll and to get, I was the one, I wasn't on camera, but I was asking the questions that the correspondent wanted to get the soundbite, and then came back. So we used to do it all the time to get them. I would sit next to the camera, because at that time it was the big broadcast beta cameras, and they would be looking at me. And a lot of people probably see that when people are being interviewed, they're sort of looking off, but it's okay that they're not looking, right at the camera. But that's how I was trained, was to, if somebody was really uncomfortable, stand behind the camera and get them just to look at you. And then when you get more well-versed in it, it just starts to become a natural thing. So that was a great question that Emma asked about conquering that lens fear.
Yes. Yeah. And then in fact, I've just got one of those Elgato teleprompters. I just have to put it together and figure out where I'm going to fit it on here. Cause I actually have, and that would be like the thing people see from behind. I have 2 monitors that I use.
Yep.
So I've got one monitor with the broadcast, and then I've got another monitor, which is the studio. So I can kind of see what's going on. I can switch between the different channels that we're on to make sure everything is working right.
Right.
And, because what you run into sometimes, especially in remote production, is you'll have people that want to do a presentation, and they're doing it from their laptop. And it's like, okay, well, when they share their presentation, now they can't see anything.
Right. And
so part of it's like, hey, you're fine. Just keep looking at your camera, go through your slides, and then when they're done, we do that. So that's something I would definitely say, if you're going to get more into this, work on getting a second monitor. Doesn't mean you got to get a second computer. And they've gotten a lot more reasonable in price.
Yeah, they are a lot more affordable. All right, let's switch gears and go over to YouTube a little bit. So for the people who are listening right now and people who are listening on the replay, so I've had a YouTube channel for years, and I really was using it more, frankly, as an archive. And then a few years ago, it's like all of a sudden YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world because it's owned by Google. And so I thought, I need to start taking my YouTube presence more seriously. And I just didn't have the bandwidth. I was working so much in my business and my coaching clients and my LinkedIn and everything that we were putting all my Coffee with Kate episodes there. And again, using it like an archive so we could use it. But then when I started working with you, I was like, you know what? In 2025, one of my goals is to really create a YouTube presence. Am I looking to make money on it? No, maybe down the road, but that's not my mission. I'm trying to be where I think more people are, versus because Instagram's not really my place. I mean, I have an account there, but YouTube is where I think it makes sense. So if somebody has done this and sort of like gone down the same path as me, what's one of the like top one or two things you would say to convince them to really start taking their YouTube channel more seriously? And what is something that they could tackle on their own?
Well, I think part of it is organization.
Yep.
One of the important things we've talked about, we're starting to implement is thumbnails, right? Thumbnails are what get people's attention. One of the things that Chris and I did from the beginning with our Amazon channel, which then we brought those same videos over to YouTube, partially to protect our copyright, was the thumbnails, because that's what happens when people are scrolling through YouTube. It's that thumbnail that catches their attention, right? So it's got to be something that, is a little bit, I won't necessarily say edgy, but it's like, what am I going to get out of this? That's one of the things that Jen talks about. Yeah. Short to the point, because if you put too much text on it, they're not going to be able to read it, or it's not going to stand out. A/B test. Also, things like the title of the video should be something that is what people are going to search for. So as an example, even though this is Coffee with Kate, the title of this episode is How to Thrive in 2025 with Video and Podcast.
Right.
That's what people will be looking for. That they wouldn't be looking for Coffee with Kate.
Right. Exactly.
So the Coffee with Kate can still, that's the name of the playlist and the podcast list. And we also did that. We put all those old podcasts now into a playlist. So when people go to the channel, like, oh, here's all the episodes. Because the other thing that people may not realize with live video on YouTube is this is a change. I don't remember when they made it. Your live videos kind of disappear into this tab called live. It's not on the front of the page. So unless you create a playlist and put those lives into that playlist, you're not going to get the same, reach and views. And then of course it is about writing descriptions that help that whole search algorithm. If you want to call it like long tail keywords, there is, programs like vidIQ and TubeBuddy that can help you optimize what you're putting in. TubeBuddy, yep. But of course, I have heard there's been some complaining. I don't know if it's because they're changing their affiliate program or something that people are complaining about TubeBuddy. But what amazed me was, so as an example, with the Dealcasters YouTube channel, Chris and I originally, like I said, our lives go on there. We were adding our product videos, and then it started to get momentum. And so we've gone in the last, I think, I would say 4 or 5 months, we hit, we had the view hours way before we had the subscribers, but now we're approaching 1,500 subscribers.
Wow.
We're making a little bit off of it, but it's more about just the fact that these shorter videos can be just as successful for you. And I would even say that's where in your case, and we'll figure this out as we work together. It's like, it's not even just so much about doing these podcasts, but like, okay, let's record some stuff that's maybe 5 to 10 minutes long. That is topics that you talk to, because that's where people learn about what your business does. I'm amazed at the number of businesses that don't have a presence on YouTube. I think you've met Roger Wakefield before. He was a plumber. His business was struggling. He went to social media marketing world, learned about YouTube, and started doing YouTubes about plumbing. And his channel blew up. He's made all kinds of money. He's sold his business. He's now, a sought after speaker, consultant, and that's in the trades. And so that's where, sometimes when I go out and talk to small business owners, I'll be like, well, do you have a YouTube channel? They're like, no. It's like, well, why would I do that? It's like, well, you can explain to people what it is that you do, right?
Hmm.
Videos of before and after, like, hey, this is a project we had. This is what it looked like before. This is the video after. We got the customer, if they're willing, talking about what a great job you did. Because then if I go search, like, for an example, tree trimmers in Marietta, Georgia, and you have a video, right?
Hmm.
Even if I'm just doing search, if it's in
Yep.
YouTube, it'll pull up as part of that search result.
Right.
So I think that's one of the big things that people really need to think about, and I think video is becoming uh, probably more preferred, especially I think with the younger generation.
It is, and
Uh,
it's becoming preferred on all platforms, including LinkedIn. A lot of
yes,
people think, "Gosh, I don't really know if I should do any video on LinkedIn." LinkedIn's algorithm loves video because LinkedIn loves the algorithm. They have something, I'm getting into the tech weeds here, but it's called dwell time.
mm,
And the longer somebody dwells, like stays on a post or reads something, the algorithm sees that as this person is interested. That's why I always tell my clients, long form content does well on LinkedIn. So longer posts, newsletters, video for sure. Just as a reminder, though, just as a quick reminder here, if you're going to upload a video file on LinkedIn into a post, it can't be longer than 10 minutes. But if you're going to like show a link from YouTube or a Vimeo link or a link from anywhere on your website or something that is a link, it doesn't matter what the length is. So just understand the difference there. But people love video, and the other thing I'll say too, especially from a LinkedIn standpoint, is to use captions, because a lot of people who look at LinkedIn look at it in the office during the day when they're around other people, and so captions are I think on all video anywhere, but especially on LinkedIn. You feel free to expand on that.
right. Well, and I've got to share this comment from Martin.
Okay.
So he said he heard that a mattress company that became a huge hit. Do I know anything about that? So Chris Stone works with a company out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and it's a mattress company. And they do a show called Lancaster Connects, and they actually interview nonprofits from their area,
Hmm.
and it's become a yeah, it has. It's become a huge hit, because and they're doing it out of the mattress store. So I think that's just another example of where they're using live streaming as a way to connect with their community, and they're not even necessarily trying to sell mattresses. Now they will give a plug for, they've got some info on better ways to sleep and things of that nature.
Right.
So I think that's another example though too of how creating video. And I think, and Chris could if he's still watching, he could put something in the comments. I think they also go live on LinkedIn. So
Hmm.
I don't think it's,
Oh,
so
cool.
that's another example of where they're taking that, sort of process into play.
Well, Bob just brought up a good point about all the platforms want the videos to be hosted on their own platform. That is true. They tend not to spread your YouTube link post as much. Captions are key too. But here's the thing, and I'm coming at this from being user friendly. So yeah, the algorithms may not like it, but you know what? If let's say you are an entrepreneur and you only use LinkedIn to put out information to be valuable to the reader, to the viewer, to your clients, prospects, whatever, I still will put those things out there because it's being user friendly to the person who wants the information. And I don't necessarily care as much about what the algorithm wants or doesn't want. But it's a really good point. It's worth knowing that yes, they want it on their own platform. But at the same time, if you're educating people or you're building awareness about something and there's a link, use it.
Right.
And so because you're still serving that end user, if you will. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
No,
a
I think
double-edged
that's a
sword. Do you
great.
want to say
No, I
more?
think that's a great point. I think better to put a link out there than to not put anything at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you may
Exactly.
not reach as many people, but you're still going to reach some. And, that's where then you just have to consider, okay, when I create these videos live, really two things. One, go live on LinkedIn so you can get the full thing there, or take that video, cut it up into under 10-minute video,
Yep.
those key points, and caption them. Chris does that all the time with our repurposing, and then upload that to LinkedIn. And so that I think would get you some traction as well. And then in the comments, maybe put to see the full episode, go here. And
Right.
so, and then get them over to your YouTube. So I think, I think that's one of those things, ultimately you own your content. That's probably why having a newsletter or having email list, you can always share where you went live in there, because
Exactly.
we don't control these platforms. And
Right.
even today, we don't know how many people in our networks, didn't see this post that we were going live, even though we've had it out there ahead of time. But we have had some folks show up here today, and really appreciate all of them coming out today.
Yeah, and Chris did respond. He said Lancaster Connects goes live on their LinkedIn business page.
Yep.
So that's the other thing. You can go live on your business page now.
Right.
I get asked about that all the time. So the benefit to going from your business page is, from an admin standpoint, you can have admins be able to go in and work in the back end for that. But also a reminder, you guys have, for those of you who followed me for years, I know I say this ad nauseum, but just remember, LinkedIn is watching who logs into your personal LinkedIn profile. They don't want anybody using your own login, your credentials, to log into their actual LinkedIn profile, because they're shutting profiles down because they're trying to break down on hackers and scammers. So, don't if you're going to have somebody doing your LinkedIn live, like I use a tool like StreamYard where I can pull my personal account in, and then my assistant, Jim, can manage all this stuff from the back end, but they're not having to actually directly go into my personal profile. So just wanted to remind everybody about that.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think the other thing too, one of the benefits I see about going live on your business page versus your personal profile is, I feel like, and that's kind of, I'll call it the shortfall of Facebook and LinkedIn as far as live video goes, is you really can't manage the appearance of where everything is on your profile. So if you keep your business page focused on the business, which may be your live videos and other stuff, it's kind of like, okay, here's my container where you can find out about my business, and here's all my videos, as opposed to, I might have a video where it was a show, and then I'm, sharing somebody's post that has nothing to do with my business, and because it shows all your activity. So that would be the one nice thing, if they would allow us to create, like you can on YouTube, playlist where you could say, this is what this content is. And of course, because it's chronological, right, it kind of goes older and older, and you've got to really search for the old stuff.
Right. Yep. Excellent point. All right. So we're starting to sort of wind down here. Jim, this has been great. I could talk to you for hours. So let's talk a little bit how, if people wanted to connect with you, talk to you, ask questions, maybe hire you for any kind of video or YouTube or podcasting stuff. Give us all the hot places we can find you.
Yeah, so I would say probably the best place to connect with me is on LinkedIn.
Yay, love that you said that.
That's my website's always in a state of flux and work. So LinkedIn is definitely the best place to connect with me. And then you can email me directly at jfuhs@fusionmarketing.com. And I'm also out there on the web.
We'll talk about your show and your show with Chris.
Oh yeah, if you want to check out our show, and I'll put this banner up. You got a couple options. You can see our storefront on Amazon at dealcasters.shop, and then you can also catch us at I want to say it's Pod page. Well, maybe Chris can put it in the comments, but we also have a pod page where we have all our episodes, and you can also go to dealcasters.live.
And what is your show mainly about, Jim?
So so we interview a lot of people. And so as an example, we had Katie Brinkley on recently. We had Dustin Stout. So we interview influencers, thought leaders, book authors. And we also will just do shows where it's me and Chris, and we talk about how to use the different technology. We might be doing a demonstration of different microphones and how they sound.
Mhm.
Because our
So I got my
tagline.
microphone. Thank you very much. Just because
Yeah.
you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And so Chris got so this is our pod page, so you can listen to it all the different ways that you prefer, right? Because we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, and all these other places. And as far as if you want to listen to audio version, even Amazon has podcast. In fact, I'll have to check. You're probably, if you're not on there, you should be on there soon because you switched over to Captivate. But they start to proliferate your
Yep.
podcast to all these different places, and so that's another good way to do things as well.
So you mentioned Captivate because that's what you so tell everybody a little bit about Captivate and then maybe remind people where they can listen to my show. Because I don't even remember because that's your job.
Right. Yeah. So Captivate is a podcast hosting service, but they also provide you the ability. You can create a web page with it. It provides you like a link that when you share it, you get to. How would I put it? It knows where that person listens to podcasts, so it doesn't automatically share Apple because maybe they don't have an iPhone.
Oh, I see. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that's where you get into these smart links and pretty links, and so yeah, Captivate's been great. I used to use it with the show I did with Christian Karasevich, Launch Your Live, when I was doing that with him, and then Chris and I have Dealcasters on there, and it's just really easy to use. They're a great company, very focused on their audience, and so yeah, Kate is everywhere on your favorite podcast player. Just search for Coffee with
I'm
Kate.
everywhere.
And we're going to continue to get her out there more. But also, I would say go subscribe to the YouTube channel. And that way you can, get onto that podcast playlist and you'll see when the new episodes come out and you can see the bright, shiny faces or, if you don't want to look at the faces, you can still listen.
Yeah.
But that's, and you think, the other thing too, when you think about it, what is nice about having your podcast say on YouTube is people can leave comments. It's really kind of hard with most of these podcast players. It's kind of like you can give a review,
Right.
but it's not like with this. When this is over, people can go ask questions a month from now, a year from now,
that's what I love
later
it.
today, and you can build that that community. So I think that's one of the great things about
I just had a flashback. Do you remember Blab?
I do.
Do you remember when that came out? That was, and everybody loved it, and it didn't stick around.
Yep.
It's so funny. It's almost like Blab came out, showed us all what was possible, went away, and then all of these tools like StreamYard.
And when Blab came out, I was one of those people that was afraid of the lens.
Yeah, I know. I was too.
So I would watch, but I never tried to get on.
Yep. I know. It's just funny how some of these things have evolved or devolved, if the case may be, over time.
Yeah.
So who knows what other tools are coming on. So, Jim, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for having coffee or whatever's in your mug.
Oh, it's coffee. It's coffee.
I actually have seltzer, so it's seltzer with Kate today.
It was my second cup of coffee of the day. I said, I got to make sure that I make a cup right before the show. So
yeah. So anyway, for any of you watching, please connect with me on LinkedIn if this is your first time hearing me, and it's Kate Paine, Paine. Certainly, you can. I do my Coffee with Kate show every month, usually on a Thursday, and it's live most of the time. I don't know if I've ever done any recorded ones, but please, if you're watching this on the replay, connect with me. Please ask questions in the chat and tag Chris or me. Jim, sorry. I'm looking at Chris's little account right now.
They can tag Chris.
They can tag Chris.
Yeah.
You can tag Bob Farnham. So anyway, thank you all for being here. And remember, Jim Fuhs, for you, all those of you who are on the podcast, it's Fuhs to spell his name. So any last nuggets you want to leave us with, Jim?
No, just thank you. And if anything, right, as Brian Fanzo, I guess still probably says, just, press the damn button and get on there and get some video.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, somebody
Uh,
just said that you have a great background.
and it's a real background. It's not fake. So
Really? How'd you do
yeah,
that?
it's a combination of peel and stick wallpaper
Really?
and lighting. Yes, in a corner.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really
Yeah,
cool. And
yeah.
thank you, Chris. So thanks again, Jim. Hang on. Don't shut off. And everybody, thank you again. And this will probably be my last show until the new year. So I
That's
wish
right.
you all
Next show is January 7th. And it's a Tuesday, not like our normal Thursdays.
right, right.
So hope to see everybody
Yes, my next show, I think my guest
on that.
is Esta McIntyre,
Yes.
who is a health and wellness person for women over 50. In fact, the name of her book, I don't know if I have it here. It's hysterical. It's basically fitness for women who don't like to move. And I think that's a really great title. So
That is
anyway,
a good title.
join us for that, and wishing everybody a happy holiday in the meantime.
Yes. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.